In APL64, a Windows Runtime Application System is packaged for distribution using the Windows Runtime Executable W-R-E utility. This utility in the APL64 developer version incorporates all the .NET and APL code necessary to deploy and run the application in a single .NET exe format file. With a single deployment file, installation requires simply copying the file to the target workstation. The appropriate versions of all components are included in the single file, so the end user has no additional components to download. Running the application requires simply double-clicking the single file. APL64-based application targeting the Windows desktop environment includes a Quad WI-based GUI with at least a main form with await action, APL workspace with Quad LX to start the main form of the application system. The workspace can also contain application algorithms and business rules. The application may also include additional workspaces, APL files, and native files. The application will be packaged using the APL64 royalty-free, perpetual, runtime license into a complete, single .NET exe format file. The single file is deployed by copying it to the target workstation. The single file is run by double-clicking it. The W-R-E utility creates a single .exe file containing APL64 runtime components, .NET runtime components, APL programmer developed APL64 workspaces and files. The W-R-E creates a .NET exe format file. The single executable file contains the entire APL64 application. The executable file is ready to run in the Windows desktop environment. The executable file is simply deployed by copying it to the target workstation. There are no additional downloads or installations required by the application system end user. Run the executable file by double-clicking it. Minimum requirements for a W-R-E application system to be created by the APL64 programmer include an APL64 workspace to support the application system, an APL64 programmer-defined application startup function, the workspace Quad LX set to execute the application startup function. The application must have a GUI which contains a main form with await action for user input. The application system GUI may be created using Quad WI. In this sample Windows desktop application, a Quad WI user interface is created which presents a form with labels and a button. The labels display various file paths used by the application including the Quad exe path, where the application system executable runs, the Quad user path, where the application configuration files are located, the button click event handler which records the number of clicks, the form caption displays the current click count. The APL64 programmer-defined LXFN which creates the GUI is run by the Quad LX of the containing workspace. In the following slides, the workflow to create the W-R-E executable file is illustrated. Before creating the W-R-E executable, The click count application is tested in immediate mode in the APL64 developer version. In this case, the application test is completed successfully. The paths illustrated in the label content of the application system will be different at runtime when the application is deployed to an end user. To create a W-R-E. Create the W-R-E source folder containing APL64 application startup workspace, with quad LX set to the application startup programmer defined function. Any additional APL64 application files and workspaces needed for the application. The application icon in ICO format. The APL64 XML format configuration file, if necessary for the application. The APL Now32 INI configuration file and the APL Now32 ADF Win32 file, which are necessary if the application uses Quad WI. Also create the W-R-E output folder, which will contain W-R-E executable and W-R-E log files, which are created by the W-R-E utility. When selecting the W-R-E source and target folder locations, it is important not to share these folders with multiple different application systems. Open the W-R-E creation utility using the Options menu. Create Runtime.NET Assembly submenu and the Create Windows Runtime Executable submenu. This menu item will present the W-R-E creation utility dialog in the APL64 developer version instance. In the W-R-E creation utility dialog, complete the required entries marked by and asterisk. The required entries for the W-R-E creation utility dialog are the runtime workspace file name, the runtime Windows executable target output folder, the runtime executable name, if different than the workspace name, the non-empty copyright text. Optional entries are available in the dialog to specify additional files required for the application. When the W-R-E creation utility dialog entries have been complete, save the entries so that they may be recalled when updates to the application system are prepared. If additional files are required for the application, specify them in the W-R-E creation utility dialog. The required information required for each additional file is the source path on the programmer's workstation of the additional file. This source path may be the W-R-E source folder, the base target path, which can be the user path, the executable path, or a custom path. The user path option is used for additional files which may be specific to an individual user of the application system in a scenario where multiple users may access the application system. The executable path option is used for files which are necessary for all users of the application. The custom path option is used when the APL programmer wants to control a specific path at runtime. If the custom path option is used, the target path suffix field must specify the path. If the custom path option is used, it is up to the APL programmer to assure that the target folder has the necessary permissions on the end user's workstation. The overwrite option determines if the additional files are materialized on the end user's workstation every time the application is run or only the first time it is run. When the Create button is clicked in the completed W-R-E creation utility dialog, the APL64 developer version instance will attempt to create the W-R-E executable and log files in the W-R-E target folder. The message box will indicate if the process was successful or not. If the process is not successful, the W-R-E log file should be consulted at the path specified in the message box. To deploy the W-R-E executable file, copy it from the W-R-E utility target folder to the desired location. Double-click the file to run the W-R-E executable. The APL64 runtime-ready workspace is not materialized to the end-user's system at runtime because the workspace remains embedded in the W-R-E executable file. The W-R-E executable file can be incorporated into an installation program by the APL64 programmer. This document is just a brief overview of the W-R-E creation utility. For more information, read the Create Windows Runtime Executable topic in the Developer Version GUI submenu of the Help menu of the APL64 developer version. Thank you for viewing this video. If you have questions or comments, please contact support@apl2000.com.